Hey guys, let's get more news about Warriors, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Stephen Curry gets mad after adult fan took shoes he gave to a child. Stephen Curry stood up for a young fan who he gave his shoes to after an adult fan tried taking them from the child. Stephen Curry is arguably the most popular basketball player amongst kids right now, as his shooting stroke has inspired a generation of fans in the last decade who idolize him. Curry often gives away his worn shoes to young fans attending games, which is what he did after the Golden State Warriors defeated the Minnesota Timberwolves 113-103 on Saturday night. Unfortunately, an adult fan tried taking the shoes from the kid, prompting Curry to yell into the stands to ensure the shoes were returned to the fan he gave them to. No. Give it to him, the kid. You've got to be a genuine lowlife as an adult if you try taking shoes from a kid at a basketball game. I'm surprised the fans in attendance didn't help the kid retrieve that prized possession when a grown man tried taking them from him. Thankfully, Curry saw the moment transpire and managed to stop it. Curry put up 31 points, 10-21 FG, and 10 assists in that win over the Timberwolves, bouncing back from arguably the worst game of his career by keeping the Warriors on track to be a playoff franchise. They need to trick off a winning streak now, having lost 9 of their last 12 games as they sit at number 7 in the West. The Warriors are trying to make their team more sustainable outside Curry as he can't carry the team's offensive load single-handedly at 36 years old. There are games where Steph simply can't be the only answer to an opponent, so Golden State has been searching the trade market aggressively for a star teammate. They've already added a rotational player to the roster with their acquisition of Dennis Schroeder from the Brooklyn Nets, although Schroeder isn't enough of an offensive force to be considered a valid second option next to Curry. The team's pursuit of Paul George and Lauri Markkanen failed over the summer, but it might have been a blessing in disguise given the poor seasons both forwards are having. They're currently heavily rumored to make a trade for Jimmy Butler and are considered the only likely destination for LeBron James if the forward were to request a trade mid-season. Warriors fans lamented Klay Thompson for most of last season, but his 17.9 PPG average last year would be higher than any non-Curry Warrior this season, proving that their attempt at replacing Klay through depth hasn't worked out perfectly yet. If the Warriors can package those depth pieces like Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson alongside Jonathan Kuminga, if they're willing to trade him, to add more pieces, the decision to move on from Klay will look great. But the Warriors right now are still missing a shot maker alongside Curry, which they'll look to acquire in the market. Preview: Warriors take on Pacers in Chase Center. The Golden State Warriors have done it again, getting back into the win column after a victorious outing over the Minnesota Timberwolves. This was Golden State's first win after a 3-game skid that saw them give up 143+ points on back-to-back occasions and included losing by 51 points to the Memphis Grizzlies. Currently the Dubs have a record of 15-12, which all things considered isn't too bad because this roster had some question marks coming in regarding internal development with their young players. In their way on Christmas Eve's Eve will be the Indiana Pacers with a record of 14-15. Warriors some trouble Monday night. TJ McConnell, Obi Toppin, Andrew Nembhard, and Aaron Nesmith are hoopers that you have to keep an eye on at all times. But don't take my word for it, just listen to Pacers blog 8 points, 9 seconds. It is no secret that Indiana's roster runs deep, with multiple members of their bench squad performing well. They were the league's highest-scoring second unit last season. Sunday night, they looked the part against the Kings. While the starters combined for 54 points, the Pacers bench outscored them by putting up 58 points themselves. Sacramento's bench scored less than 30 points. Pacers are healthier and starting to find a rhythm. 4 straight wins and 5 of their last 6. They were plus 27 in the second half to beat the Kings 122-95. 7 in double figures. Sabonis had 17 21sts for SAC. The Warriors are figuring out their own bench issues, currently second in the league in reserve scoring at 47.3 points per game. They're 18th in bench FG%, which may have something to do with the fact that they also lead the league in most three-pointers attempted by bench players at just under 18 per game. Chuck 'em up and see what happens, guys? Who you got, Pacers or Warriors? Warriors, they're finding their groove. We're back for another betting prediction and pick in the NBA as we head to the Western Conference for the third meeting between these two squads. The Golden State Warriors, 14-12, will take on the Minnesota Timberwolves, 14-12, as both teams sit adjacent in the Western Conference standings. It's time to continue our NBA odds series with a Warriors-Timberwolves prediction and pick. The Golden State Warriors are currently 10th in the Western standings, losing 8 of their last 10 and 4 of their last 5 heading into this game. They own a win over this Minnesota team from earlier this month, but they'll need to improve on a 7-7 road record to find the victory here. The Minnesota Timberwolves are 8th in the West, winning 6 of their last 8 games. They were most recently embarrassed by the Knicks to the tune of 133-107, a game that sparked frustrated takes from Anthony Edwards. They'll be looking to redeem their recent efforts with a needed win at home. Timberwolves' Anthony Edwards goes off on referees after chippy loss to Warriors. The Minnesota Timberwolves fell to the Golden State Warriors 113-103 on Saturday night. Once again, Anthony Edwards was not happy following the loss, and didn't hold back when reflecting on the officiating. "And terrible," Edwards said to reporters in the post-game locker room, per Dane Moore on X, formerly Twitter. "Excuse is the reason they call a foul, they don't call a foul, the was just terrible. They don't want to talk back to me, they don't want to talk back to my coach. I said one thing to the ref and he gave me a tech. They penalize me and July 4 being stronger than our opponent every night. We don't get no calls. Yeah. That's how I feel about the officials." Edwards finished the night with 19 points on 6 of 20 shooting, with 7 rebounds and 5 assists. As the All-Star guard referred to the reporters after the game, he and teammate Julius Randle were hugely impacted by no calls. On a vintage Stephen Curry night where the former MVP knocked down 7 three-pointers, the Timberwolves were able to make a comeback after being down 50-37 at the half, scoring 38 total in the third quarter. As the time evaporated down the stretch, Curry icing the game with 2 huge threes under the 3-minute mark, it all went back to how poorly Minnesota began the game. Again, Edwards and company continued the streak of bad offense, shooting 27.3% in the opening 2 quarters, and missed key shots in the end that could have perfected the comeback. Officiating has been a huge topic, especially hovering over such an explosive player like Edwards who thrives off of getting to the bucket and to the free throw line. There is bound to be more frustrations going forward. And Edwards, Randle and the rest of the T-Wolves squad will have to adjust. And you fan? What do you think of the situation of Anthony Edwards? Leave your opinion in the comments.